This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Yunxiao was sure that this man must be a simulation of Tan Dijuan's transformation. This time, he had overturned all his previous observations. Since Tan Dijuan had such a brilliant transformation and simulation technique, it was very likely that there were some powerful people hiding among these seemingly casual warriors. He had to be more careful. He thought to himself, when I assassinate Zhang Linghua, I must have some life-saving methods. Tan Dijuan is not reliable, so I must have everything under my control. Elder Lu greeted the people who had come before him, then walked to the end of the hall and sat down. Tan Dijuan and another disciple stood behind him carefully. They didn't look out of place at all. Judging from the situation, this Elder Lu must be one of the 6 elders that Tan Dijuan had roped in. However, his strength was limited, only at the level of a 1-star martial supreme. Finally, the familiar figure came into Yunxiao's sight. After a beam of light fell, Mei Dong appeared, standing behind an old woman. The old woman's long brocade robe had 2 cranes embroidered on it, and they were chasing each other. After she greeted everyone one by one, she found a seat in the middle of the front row and sat down. From her position should be relatively high among the many elders. Mei Dong, on the other hand, was wearing a peacock green butterfly dress, which set off her fair face. Although she was not an absolute beauty, she still attracted everyone's attention. Yunxiao could hear many people around him drooling. However, Mei Dong's face was expressionless. Instead, her gaze fell below the viewing platform, as if she was looking for something in the crowd. Her eyes were filled with loneliness. Suddenly, her eyes fell on Yunxiao, and she was taken aback. Then, she looked overjoyed, and her eyes shone with a rare smile. If her master He Yenrong was not here, she would have shouted it out. Yunxiao smiled and made a gesture at her. Dong, you know that person? Mei Dong's movement was immediately noticed by He Yenrong. She frowned and fixed her eyes on Yunxiao as she said in surprise, who is that kid? He's about the same age as you, but he has the cultivation of a peak 5-star martial grandmaster. Her tone revealed traces of shock. Mei Dong's talent was already uncountable in the entire Big Dipper sect, and it was difficult to find a second person. He didn't expect to find such a talented junior. When Mei Dong heard He Yenrong's question, she immediately became nervous and hurriedly said, "Yes, this is the person who saved me in the back mountain that day." What? He Yenrong was shocked and almost jumped up. After Mei Dong returned that day, she told He Yenrong about what had happened in the back mountain in detail. However, Yin Yan and Yuan Shoshuang were the disciples of the other 2 elders, so she had no right to punish them. Moreover, the 2 elders were people who were extremely difficult to provoke. In addition, Yin Yan's family background was not small, so although she was angry, the sect's great competition was approaching, so she did not dare to act rashly and do anything shocking. Instead, she quietly told Zhang Linghua about this matter, and Zhang Linghua also told her to hold back and wait until after the sect competition. Now, when she saw the person who had saved Mei Dong that day, she was shocked and had a good impression of him. Do you know the background of this person? Mei Dong shook her head and timidly added after a long while, I only feel that he is unfathomable. Unfathomable? He Yenrong frowned slightly, as if she was thinking about the coldness of his words. Her eyes never left Yunxiao for a moment, but they became very gentle. Another ray of light shot into the viewing platform. A skinny old man in a blue robe swept his gaze over the crowd. Without saying hello to anyone, he strode toward the seat in front of him. However, none of them felt that it was inappropriate. Instead, they all stood up and bowed politely to the old man. Many of the elders appeared to be very respectful. Even He Yenrong hurriedly stood up and greeted Elder Feng. The old man didn't respond and went straight to his own seat. He sat down as if there was no one around and directly closed his eyes to rest. The crowd on the viewing platform did not feel that Elder Feng's actions were out of place. On the contrary, they felt that it was the case. However, when it landed in the eyes of the crowd below, it caused an uproar. Fuck, who's that old man? Do his parents know that he's so cool? Do you want to die? That's Elder Feng, the head of the Big Dipper Sect's 10 great elders. His strength isn't any weaker than Sect Master Zhang's. Woof. The old man I was talking about was that one-star martial grandmaster over there. Don't you fucking associate my words with the revered Elder Feng. Do you want to die? Fuck your sister. You're obviously talking about Elder Feng. How could I not know Elder Feng? You little brat, your heart is really hateful, you actually want to draw hatred for me. Today I finally saw your true face, our friendship ends. Yunxiao turned to look at Elder Feng. If he glanced at him inadvertently, he would find the old man as ordinary and unremarkable as he was. Even if he gave him a light glance, he would not find anything special about him. However, if one looked closely at the Kasaya, one would realize that one could not see his true face. It only gave one a sense of trance, and his face was faintly discernible. This old man is really strong. It's very likely that he's a half-step martial emperor. Yunxiao frowned inwardly. He did not know whether the old man had been roped in by Tan Dijuan. If not, he would be in a much more dangerous situation when two half-step martial emperors attacked him at the same time. Sect Master Liang is here too. Sorry for not welcoming you. On the viewing platform, Yingrong stood up with a smile. Under the protection of a group of people, a middle-aged man in white walked over with a smile. He was dressed like a scholar and had the aura of a sect leader. He was the sect leader of the New Moon Sect, Xiao Minghui. The New Moon Sect was not a weak local power in Southfire City, and it had played an extremely important role in resisting the Chamber of Commerce. Once again, Yunxiao saw a familiar face. Liang Quan was also in the crowd behind Xiao Minghui, but he had a straight face and an absent-minded look, as if he had something very deep in his heart. There was also a slightly calmer man, who looked similar to Liang Quan, following behind Xiao Minghui. He should be the deputy sect leader, Liang Yi. Elder He is too polite. It is already a great honor for Minghui to have Elder Yu accompanying him. Xiao Minghui was gentle and elegant. He responded very generously and appropriately. Everyone was already familiar with each other. An old man in a gray robe beside Xiao Minghui stroked his beard and laughed, being able to talk with Sect Master Xiao, this Yu has benefited a lot. He made an inviting gesture and arranged for Xiao Minghui to sit on the left side of the front row, while he himself sat down between Yingrong and Elder Feng on the right side. He was obviously the second in command among the elders, and his strength was also extraordinary. There were still 4 empty seats in the middle, probably reserved for the few people with the highest status in Southfire City. The 10 great elders of the Big Dipper sect have all arrived. I've seen a few elders appear in succession these few days, and now they're all here. Following Elder Yu's arrival, all 10 elders of the Big Dipper sect arrived, with Elder Feng as their leader. His eyes were still closed, and he paid no attention to the outside world. The last one was the one-star Marshal Supreme, Elder Lu. Nonsense, don't you know what day it is today? These 20 disciples who are going to be in the finals are basically all disciples of these elders. Of course, I have to be concerned. Yes, it's said that if you can make it into the top 10, the teaching elders will also have great benefits. You must note that these elders are all martial honors and any one of them has great power in Nanhua City. Look, the 2 sect masters of the Wufu sect have arrived. The sect leader of the Big Dipper sect, Zhang Linghua, and the sect leader of the Sky Scorpion sect, Li Fengyu. Yunxiao looked in the direction of a beam of light and saw several figures in the viewing gallery. The man on the left was wearing a long green robe, with deep and dark eyes, but his face was slightly pale, and he seemed to be in low spirits. The person on the right was dressed in a light mist luoi. He had a relatively strong physique, and his every movement revealed a kind of unhurried calmness. It was the Sky Scorpion sect leader, Li Fengyu. The arrival of the 2 immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the viewing gallery. Even Elder Feng opened his eyes slightly and nodded at the 2 of them. Yunxiao carefully sent his divine sense over, but it was immediately blocked by an invisible force. Instead, the force followed his divine sense and followed him. His expression changed slightly and he decisively cut off his divine sense, pretending to be an ordinary cultivator and looking at the several people in the audience with admiration. Zhang Linghua frowned slightly and glanced at Yun Xiao with a suspicious look on her face, but she only snorted lightly and did not take it seriously. "Brother Zhang, what's wrong?" Li Fengyu saw that there was something wrong with his expression and asked in surprise. "I'm fine," Zhang Linghua shook her head and smiled. "Brother Li, please take a seat." The two of them looked at each other and smiled. They went forward and sat on the seats on the left in the middle, leaving 2 empty seats. Everyone's eyes were cold, knowing that they were left for the Chamber of Commerce. Although there were constant hidden fights, everyone still got along harmoniously on the surface. This Li Fengyu's strength is very strong. He actually set up a divine sense barrier. I can't figure out his background. In fact, it was not that his divine sense was not strong enough, but if he were too brazen, he would be discovered by the other party very soon. However, as long as he had not reached the rank of a marshal supreme, he did not need to worry too much. After Zhang Linghua sat down, she said, "Let's start." Behind him, Elder Yu stood up and transmitted his voice, "Don't wait for Lei Qianqian." Zhang Linghua waved her hand and interrupted him. She said coldly, "We're already prepared. Since they don't want to come, then they don't need to come." Elder Yu nodded his head lightly and walked forward. He said loudly, "The last day of the Big Dipper Sect's competition will now begin. Now, according to the order of drawing lots, please enter the arena one by one." Sect leader Zhang, "We're just half a step late, and you're going to turn us away?" A clear voice came from the distance and reverberated throughout the mountain. Everyone looked out, but it was empty. There was no one. It was empty outside the mountain, so he didn't know where the voice came from. Zhang Linghua sneered and waved her hand. Everyone felt a light breeze blowing past them, and they felt unspeakably comfortable. It blew towards the mountain, and a white ray of light surged up from the top of the mountain, forming a light curtain that covered the entire mountain peak, isolating it from the outside world. Sect leader Zhang is too stingy. The voice rang out again, and a sound wave spread out in the air like a wave, pushing against the white defense and deforming it. A 7th-tier Golden Sun battleship appeared in the sky, blocking out the sun. The entire mountain became dark. The battleship slowly approached, as if it was going to crash into the defense. The faces of everyone on the viewing platform changed, each and every one of them glaring at him. The rogue cultivators below were all shocked as well, and fear spread in their hearts. Everyone knew the relationship between the Chamber of Commerce and the local forces. Zhang Linghua stood up from her seat and said with a sharp gaze, "Ing Lin, come to my Big Dipper sect on a warship. I really hope you can give me an explanation." A hearty laugh came from the battleship, and a few figures emerged from it. The man in the lead was wearing a purple robe with dragon patterns embroidered on it. He grinned and made a hand seal. The Golden Sun battleship immediately transformed into a miniature ship that he held in his palm. This man was none other than the president of the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce's branch in Southfire City, Chu Lin. He laughed while holding the Golden Sun warship. "Sect leader Zhang, you worry too much. This Golden Sun battleship is my gift to the rising stars of the Big Dipper sect. It's the prize for the champion of the competition." As soon as these words came out, the crowd was in an uproar, all of them were shocked. Although the Golden Sun battleship was only a 7th-tier item, its value was definitely above that of an ordinary 8th-tier mystic weapon. In this era where alchemists and all kinds of natural treasures were scarce, even martial emperors rarely had 9th-tier mystic artifacts. An 8th-tier profound weapon was basically the most precious profound weapon that every cultivator dreamed of. The expressions of the young disciples of the Big Dipper sect on the viewing platform changed slightly, revealing an expression of surprise and uncertainty. This battleship was too large and they basically had no use for it. But if they were to auction it, they could definitely exchange it for a low-quality 8th-tier profound armament. Just thinking about it made him excited, especially Chengyu, who was the favorite to win the championship. He couldn't help but feel his palms sweat. "It's rare that sect leader Nie is so thoughtful," said Zhang Linghua indifferently. "However, don't make such a big move next time. This Zhang almost directly activated the mountain protecting Great Formation and blasted you all into dregs. His words were filled with endless coldness, and all the cultivators who were making a racket suddenly shut up. Only then did he remember the relationship between the two factions. His words were filled with coldness and contempt for the other party. Sect leader Zhang must be joking again. The Big Dipper sect's small mountain protecting formation is just a toy for children to play with. It's not worth mentioning in the eyes of our Thunder Wind Chamber of Commerce. It's just good enough to scare children. Chu Lin flew down from the sky with the others, and after a round of sarcastic remarks, he laughed and said, "Today is your sect's grand occasion, let's not talk about these boring things." "Indeed, please take a seat here," Li Fengyu also said with a dark face. "If it wasn't for the Big Dipper sect's grand event today, you probably wouldn't be able to return." Chu Lin didn't mind and sat down beside the two of them. "By the way, I've seen Elder Lu of the Heavenly Scorpion sect before. Why hasn't he appeared for a long time? Did he meet with any accidents?" "You." Li Fengyu's expression changed drastically. The aura on his body moved, and he furiously said, "As expected, it was your doing." He clenched his 5 fingers so tightly that they made a crackling sound. He gritted his teeth and said, "Good, good, it's really good." Chu Lin sneered complacently, crossed his legs, and stopped talking. The person beside him was much calmer. He also sat on the 4th chair, not saying a word. Zhang Linghua glanced at the man, her pupils shrinking. "This scum looks unfamiliar. Is he a new lackey of your Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce?" The 4th person's face twitched slightly, and a trace of anger flashed in his eyes. Then, he returned to his calm expression and did not answer. "I almost forgot to introduce you," said Chu Lin with a laugh. "This is the president of the Sky Crane Business Council, Fang Tianhe. Everyone should have heard of him, right?" They didn't hide their words at all, and everyone present could hear them clearly. They were all drenched in cold sweat. If it was anyone else who spoke like that, they would have been killed by the other party. Yunxiao was taken aback as he looked at Fang Tianhe. It turned out that this man was the president of the Sky Crane Trade Union, who was closing in on the Purple Cloud Trade Union. He was indeed in cahoots with the Thunderwind Trade Union. And from the looks of it, he was still following Chu Lin's lead. The Sky Crane Merchant Association? Zhang Linghua's brows furrowed, but her expression relaxed and she smiled. "President Qian, you must be joking. There are so many miscellaneous chambers of commerce in the Merchant Union. Hundreds of them disappear every day and hundreds of new ones are established. The changes are too fast. How can I know so much? Maybe one day, the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce will suddenly disappear. That's not surprising at all." Sect leader Zhang said so. "There is no chamber of commerce that will last forever in this world, and there is no force that will stand tall forever." Chu Lin didn't seem to mind at all. He smiled and said, "However, the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce is a permanent member of the Business Alliance. By the time it disappears, I'm afraid that the Big Dipper sect and the Heavenly Scorpion sect will have long been gone." A gloomy expression appeared on Li Fengyu's face as he snorted, "A permanent member?" The Merchant Union's martial arts and sorcery conventions would be held in Songwei City in a month. It was said that several extremely powerful existences had emerged this time. Could the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce secure their position this time? I'm not optimistic about you guys, and I'm planning to go to Songwei City to open a bet and bet that you guys will lose. I'll come back after earning a lot of money. "Welcome, welcome, Sect Leader Li," Chu Lin said with a smile. "You're welcome to give us vitality stones. The Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce will definitely raise a lot of money to bet with you." The words of the few people were full of ridicule, attacking each other, unwilling to back down in the slightest, and the smell of gunpowder was also getting stronger and stronger. However, they all controlled themselves very well and did not make a move. Everyone was an old fox. It was fine if they fought verbally, but if they really fought, it would be a matter of great harm to their bones and vitality. When they were almost done attacking each other, Zhang Linghua said, "Let's start the competition." Elder Yu nodded his head slightly before stepping forward and shouting, "All disciples, please enter the arena according to the order of drawing lots." In order to select the 10 pro-disciples in the most reasonable way, the Big Dipper Sect's competition rules were also very reasonable. They would be divided into 2 sects according to their cultivation base, and they would draw lots to fight each other. This way, they could avoid disciples of similar strength being eliminated from each other to the greatest extent. The first to go on stage was Mei Dong. She gently leaped up from the viewing platform, like a small green flower that had suddenly bloomed. The butterflies on her long dress danced along with her body, giving off a simple and natural beauty in the mountains, causing everyone's eyes to light up. Mei Dong leaped onto the largest arena and sneaked a glance at Yun Xiao, who was in the crowd. When she saw him smiling at her, she blushed and quickly turned her eyes away. "Young Master Yun, this little girl seems to be interested in you," Ping Yingyi said softly. Yun Xiao turned his head and said, "Are you jealous?" A look of admiration appeared in Chu Lin's eyes as he praised, "This little girl is really not bad. She's pretty and talented. It's a pity that she cast pearls before swine." The other Big Dipper Sect disciple gently flew up to the arena, looking very nervous. He was only a 3 stars martial grandmaster, and he was holding a 6th-tier profound-level treasured saber. He cupped his fists at Mei Dong and said with a bitter smile, "Junior sister Mei, please show some mercy later and give me some face." Mei Dong smiled. "Senior brother Yun, you're too humble. Please give way to junior sister." Senior brother Yun shook his head with a wry smile. He picked up the saber and waved it around. "Junior sister, please. I will do my best. Please don't be stingy with your teachings." After he finished speaking, he didn't hesitate. With the infusion of vital qi, the treasured saber let out a trembling sound and attacked first. He knew the gap between him and Mei Dong. If he had made the first move, he might have been able to hold on for a while longer, and even have a chance of winning. Mei Dong stood unmoving. She stretched out her arms and moved forward. Her arms moved slightly like a green water bird that was lightly swimming. An invisible force appeared around her body, forming a circular defensive barrier. Clang! Senior brother Yun's treasured saber came straight down and landed on the defensive barrier. The blade stopped halfway through, blocked by the spiritual pressure and unable to go any deeper. "What?" Senior brother Yun's eyes widened in disbelief. Bean-sized beads of cold sweat trickled down his forehead. How could the gap be so big? He couldn't even break through the opponent's defense. What was he supposed to do? Unseal. He roared in shock and anger. The surging yuan power crazily poured into the 6th-tier profound weapon, and the blade light instantly grew dramatically. The spiritual pressure that it felt was no longer as strong as before, and it gradually pierced into the weapon. Mei Dong's expression didn't change. Although her defensive power was constantly being shattered, she was still at ease. She retracted her hands, and the circular defense instantly disappeared. The saber light suddenly stabbed upwards, and she lightly stepped back. Her right hand's 5 fingers closed together, and she slapped the back of the saber. Bang! The treasured saber was directly shaken to the side, and the powerful force collided with the saber light. The backlash made senior brother Yun's arm numb, and he couldn't hold the hilt. After Mei Dong struck out with her palm, she leaned forward and punched senior brother Yun's right shoulder with her left hand, sending him flying out of the arena. The entire competition only lasted for a few breaths. It was simple and clear, without any sloppiness. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then the whole venue burst into applause and cheers. Mei Dong's face was calm, and she didn't even take a breath. She stood there quietly after sending out a palm and a fist. Under the applause of the crowd, she bowed neither humbly nor arrogantly. "Thank you for letting me win, senior brother Yun."